You people are not my family.
Welcome, Gothamites, to another episode of the Arkham Sessions. My name is Brian Ward. With me, as always, the psychologist to the superheroes, superheroines, and supervillains of Gotham City and beyond. She's Dr. Drea Letamendi. Hello, Drea.
That's me.
It is you. I got to tell you, before we start out in this episode, we're, of course, covering Bensonhurst, the 10th episode of Harley Quinn Season 1. We're back to Harley Quinn after a short break off for our WonderCon panel last episode. But the episode before that, I believe it was A Seat at the Table, we got a lot of really good, positive comments, particularly over at our Discord, where a lot of people were just, I don't know if thankful is the right word. They were happy that we were willing to be so forthright about our feelings about that topic and about, you know, whatever, what is it, PDA and ADHD and all that.
Well, let me just give you kudos for disclosing a bit about yourself. I want to thank you for your self-disclosure because you started to give some examples of how your ADHD impacts you. Mm-hmm. And you hadn't, I think before that point, you hadn't really brought that into our show in such detail.
Right. And
I think that's what,
or even our own relationship, like just us talking to each other.
Sure.
Like, I don't know that I've ever really spoken about a lot of that stuff to anyone before because, you know,
I hope that what happens here is that there are two things happening, I think. One is that you and I have created a safe space with each other where on this platform, the context is about our vulnerabilities around mental health and the struggles and triumphs and experiences that we have.
But only on this platform.
Well, and I think I was going to say two things, right? So that's the first thing, is that safety is a big part of how we create a space here. And the second thing is, it's not just you and me. So maybe there is this additional public facing piece of this that gives us a sense, at least for me, I'm not going to speak for you, but I think there's a sense of responsibility around that we're stewarding this information with a lot of care. And that, of course, if you were to disclose something in this space, I would do my best to hear you out and not to judge you and to explain it, but also let you explain it. You're the expert of your own mental health. Not that wouldn't happen offline,
off camera and off audio.
I almost think there's lots of scaffolding here that maybe, again, I'm assuming gave you the encouragement to be more open with purpose. And the purpose was, I'm going to share something about myself that's hard to share, but maybe other people will relate to it, or maybe other people will see themselves in this situation. Now, meanwhile, you got validation that you may not have expected to get. That wasn't why you said those things.
Right.
And I completely agree with you. We had numerous messages and emails and a handful of folks in other ways reach out to us and say, I'm so glad that you talked about yourselves in this way. In particular, the topic of demand avoidance and how you shared how that is something that you struggle with. So if anyone's listening to this and they're unsure what we're talking about, it's 2 episodes ago. It's the one that is called Harley Quinn, A Seat at the Table. It starts with us getting into the details of the Harley Quinn show, but then pivoting to talk about the examples that come up in real life for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see where, because I've never, and you know this about me, and maybe it's sharing for other people as well. You know that I've never gone to any sort of official therapy. Like I've never been in therapy. I've never seen a therapist. But I can see now, just you were talking about the scaffolding of this show and sort of how this platform allows us to be open with one another and with the audience in ways that we didn't normally anticipate ever being. You know that I'm a pretty open person anyway. There isn't a whole lot that I'm not willing to share with people, even maybe to the detriment of maybe I say too much. But I can see easily where this show made me feel like, oh, I get how, like maybe like couples therapy or like, you know, like that. I get how that works now, you know, like not that I didn't necessarily before, but I can see where by creating a safe space like this and by creating, you know, by putting ourselves on camera, by putting ourselves on mic.
I'm on camera?
I mean,
I'm just
let
kidding.
me turn that off. You know, and it's not like we need couples therapy, but I can see where that works. Cause like you just said, with this particular platform, it makes us sit down and really listen to one another, and you know, so I could see where that would be really helpful for people who need couples therapy.
Sure.
I might even be like, hey, can we just go just for the giggles of it because
To couples therapy?
Yeah, it allows us to just talk and you know whatever.
Okay.
Anyway, no, I appreciated it, and I appreciate what you said about this platform and about our audience and about how, you know, it's sort of a free-flowing exchange of ideas between Discord and even some of our other social media and Patreon and then us talking to people through our podcast. It's that episode and the comments we got afterward made me think about the show more than I often do. And I think it's because we've been doing it so long, I've taken it for granted.
Sure.
And now I realize that the only way you can truly get the message out is by opening up, even when it means talking about something that is going to be hard. And I'm not going to lie to you. This episode, Bensonhurst, is going to be hard to talk about.
Sure.
It was a hard watch for me. There are so many people who are in similar situations right now as we have come out of an election and we have new people, new power in place. It's a very divisive country right now. A lot of our listeners, believe it or not, are overseas, so they don't necessarily have the same experiences that we do. But every country has their own divisive topics and, you know, the kind of things you don't want to talk about at family dinners and things like that. And now we are literally going back home and revisiting Harley's family. And it's not necessarily a great story.
No.
It's
It is
a familiar story.
Very toxic family.
Yeah.
And it doesn't pull any punches. It's very direct. And it can be hard to watch because of the family dynamics that are shown with such clarity and such directness. I will say, though, it does a great job. The Harley Quinn show on HBO Max manages to tell really good stories and really serious and put out really serious themes, but also throw in layers of comic relief and smart and witty writing and full dimensional characters. You know, we when we talk about DC animation, certainly the animated series where this started for us, this show started for us, we've always been very impressed with how serious topics and layers of lightheartedness come together to cultivate a really great story and to leave you really feeling impacted by it, but not so exposed that you don't want to see, you don't want to watch it again. So
it's very
I'd say
palatable.
This is true.
Yeah. It's deep, but it's also entertaining. It's easy to consume. And so I do appreciate the creators of the show for that.
Yeah. And once again, you do not have to watch the Harley Quinn show to listen to our podcast. It is background information and we'll explain everything we need to.
Yeah.
But for folks wondering, this is episode 8?
10.
10 Oh, wow. Episode 10 of the first season of Harley Quinn.
Yeah. Which reminds me, that means we have 3 episodes of this series or this season left. That means...
Oh, I have some ideas
There's
about
a
where we're
poll
going next.
coming up.
There's a poll coming up, and it is a poll that is designed by yours truly.
Interesting.
It is.
I haven't even weighed in on the
You're
poll.
not
I have
going
no
to.
idea what you've
I
selected.
have so many ideas.
But I will say for listeners, especially if you're new to the show and you have not yet voted on anything we've covered in the past, we always give our listeners an opportunity to choose what we're going to cover after our current season. And as a result, we've watched shows that we wouldn't have normally thought we would ever watch. We saw season 1 of Steven Universe, which was quite good. We saw season 1 of Doom Patrol, which was quite good. Not 100% Drea's cup of tea, but I enjoyed it very much. And it had a lot to say about society. And then we've covered X-Men, we've covered Star Wars, we've covered Star Trek, we have now covered Harley Quinn. So we are giving you the opportunity to choose what we cover next. In the following 3 episodes, here's how it's going to go. Next episode, we are going to give you, now that I know that you've created polls, I was going to say 5. How many options?
5 options.
5. Okay, so we're going to give you 5 options, and you will go to Discord and you will vote on those 5 options. The top 3 will then be announced at the following episode, so 2 weeks later. And then you go to Patreon, and for $3, you can vote and decide what we cover next. The winner will then be announced in the season finale of our Harley Quinn wrap up, which I believe, if I've done my math correctly, that'll be the episode going up on May 31st. So that means we've only got about a month and a half before we know what we're covering next.
It's still not too late to make suggestions. We're always listening.
Yeah.
We're always watching. We're always paying
always.
attention. So you do not have to be a member of Patreon or Discord. Feel free to send us a voice message. Go to drdreapsychology.com and hit the leave a voice message button. Mm-hmm. You can leave your message there. You can send us an email, thearkhamsessions@gmail.com.
ArkhamSessions@gmail.com.
I always get that wrong.
Well, it's because, and I see where you would, our Instagram had to be the Arkham Sessions, and our Twitter before that was just Arkham Sessions, and that was created around the same time as our Gmail, which is also just ArkhamSessions@gmail.com.
Got it.
But
okay.
yes.
Well, email us at arkhamsessions@gmail.com.
Yes.
Or go to Instagram, the Arkham Sessions.
Yes.
And send us a note.
Yeah, perfect.
I also want to mention that our Discord channel is on our Instagram bio, if you're wondering how to get the link to that. And we welcome you. It's a free space. It's a community space. And we talk about all sorts of things in there. But we really need to jump into this episode because I know we have a ton to talk about.
Do we? Okay.
Yeah.
So
I see your avoidance.
I'm avoiding it.
I see your demand avoidance.
Do not tell me we need to cover this because I will not want to.
Let me frame it in an exploratory, open-ended statement.
Okay.
This could be a good time to start talking about the Harley Quinn show. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that didn't really work for me, but I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it to make you and the audience happy. I am nothing if not a giver. Let's talk about Bensonhurst. So Harley at this point has been separated from her gang. They are no longer hench folk for the Legion of Doom. They have been ousted. Poison Ivy is still captured. We're not entirely sure why yet, but if we remember in the last episode, the seat at the table, she ran into a situation she shouldn't have, and it turned out to be a trap. They have caught Ivy, and Harley is told by Harleen, that inner voice within herself, that she should visit the one person who would always love her no matter what. And while she thinks that references to Ivy, it's actually her mother. And so she decides to go home for the first time in a long while. And we get to see just how dysfunctional a family this is. To give you any indication as to how dysfunctional a family this is, at one point in the montage of their history, we see that they're basically the Bundys from Married with Children. Like,
oh, okay.
Yeah, I
didn't notice that.
Yeah, there was a moment in the photos section when it was like when it would dissolve as they got older, and then eventually it was just mom on the couch. At one point, she's got the red hair up in the bun, and the husband's just sitting there next to her. So it was basically Peg and Al and the kids.
They have a modest home. You get a glimpse of Harley's upbringing and past. This is the middle of the suburbs. She visits her mom, assuming that her mom is just on her own. We'll dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But what we learn is that she grew up with her mom, her dad, her younger brother, who has since passed away. Mm-hmm. I don't believe we know the circumstances surrounding his passing.
I don't believe so.
But there is an urn on the fireplace. Mm-hmm. And at first glance, it's a warm welcome. The home is suitable. You don't know. In other words, you don't notice any concerns. It's not under-resourced. It seems to be kept well.
So what you're saying is, if you were like a member of like Child Protection Services, and you were going into this home.
When I worked with the county, we did home assessments, which, let me reframe that. It's a psychological assessment of an individual, a child, but we are also assessing the environment.
Yeah.
What are we noticing about the cleanliness and the interior of the structure, that they call home? So are we noticing any exposed wires that might be, dangerous for children? Does the home seem to have resources there, electricity? Is it warm? Is it, overheated? There are things that, based on the weather, the environment outside, how does the home feel? And then other elements of the family members who are there. So you are looking for those things, and I didn't notice anything concerning when I saw it.
We get some unfortunate news when Dad shows back up at the house, and it turns out that he and Mom have gotten back together. Now, this is the dream for a lot of kids who grew up in like divorced households, and then a nightmare for others. And in this case, for Harley, this might be the worst possible thing that could happen. We learned that her father was not a particularly good guy, had serious gambling debts, was her coach when it came to her gymnastics competitions. She was incredibly athletic. We've seen how that has helped her going forward in her chosen path as a villain in Gotham City. But we now realize that she owes a lot of that to her upbringing and the fact that she was basically a world-class gymnast who was going to win another championship. But in order to help her father and to help settle his gambling debts, she threw the final competition.
Right.
She did not land it properly, after her routine. She actually did, but then in the last second fell down. And
she definitely threw away, just with that, with making that choice. She threw away chances for success as a gymnast, as a competitor. What I noticed is that she's a high achiever. So when we're thinking about her academics, her studies, she's top of the class. When we're thinking about her history as a young athlete, a competitor, a gymnast, she's, world class. And so she as an individual is amazingly talented and skilled and has these abilities. And it's her parents, particularly her father, who takes advantage of that.
Yes.
You mentioned that he had some problems. I'll go right out and say this looks like a gambling addiction.
Yeah.
The fact that he's getting into trouble financially and then using his family, in particular Harleen, to settle debts and to do nefarious things financially that directly harm her. So it's as if he's putting his needs before the needs of his family members. And a parent doesn't do that. I'll say this, that I don't think it's going to surprise you, that for that to be one of the first memories she has of her relationship with her dad in this way, that's very saddening, that he would essentially put his needs, he's supposed to take care of her. He's supposed to look after her. He's someone who she's supposed to trust and rely on. And what we see is that it's like role reversal.
Yeah.
She has to take care of him.
Yeah. Yeah. And mom is sort of in the middle.
Yeah.
To some degree. Let's jump back to Ivy. Ivy is being held in a location. We still don't know who the big boss is at this moment, but there is a hench person, a goon there in a costume, and not really a uniform, kind of a hazmat-y type suit.
So Ivy is also in a toxic environment, but a
Yes.
different kind of toxic
Yes.
environment. And she can tolerate, her body is plant-based or whatever, so she can tolerate it. But whoever this guy is, he needs to be head
this
to toe.
goon, whose name is Gus, is we find out he is basically moonlighting as a goon. He is on the app and wants to make sure he maintains above a 4-star rating, because once you're under that, you might be dead. And we learned that he's actually a kindergarten teacher in his day job. So even in this fictional universe, even in Gotham, teachers can't buy the supplies they need for their kids.
So upsetting.
Because he is, in fact, using the money he makes as a goon to buy those school supplies. She offers to pay him double and to get him construction paper and some of the nicer markers and crayons, etc. But yeah, that might end up actually hurting his rating as a goon on the app. So he can't help her out. Seems like a nice guy, well-intentioned. He's just there to help the kids. And I don't know that I can blame him if the reason that you're a goon is to help out the kids at school so that their futures might be brighter. Maybe Poison Ivy deserves to be shackled to a table.
I'm not behind this.
Oh, okay.
It's too gray of a.
Yeah,
We're getting very morally gray here, and
right.
I'm not sure about it. She's in like a power plant, right? Like a deactivated.
Yeah, it's the location that she was showing up because she saw the commercial about how they were going to just plow everything in Gotham, all the trees, and they were just going to expand and make it that much more industrialized.
Right.
And so that's when she showed up and then got captured. What I did appreciate, though, and this is later in the episode, is that we see as is it a dandelion? Where the dandelion is blown and the wind carries the seedling through the vents and it shows up and lands on Ivy. And I appreciate that in that moment, Ivy can just basically bring it to sentient life simply by talking to it, and it sprouts and becomes like an adult little dandelion, sunflower weed or whatever, and it becomes her little companion.
I'm glad at the end it wasn't like, what am I?
Yeah. I'm going to make you do that again for our closing audio bit.
Great.
But let's get back to Harley and the family. It is a pretty simple, straightforward story. We are meant to not necessarily trust Nick, her father, Nick Quinzel. He begs her to give him the opportunity to prove himself worthy of being a good father. She agrees to help the family, but not because she wants to give him the benefit of the doubt. She ends up basically killing off the mob that he owes all this money to. And then one night at dinner, just as she starts to think that maybe he has turned a new leaf, he betrays her once again and makes it clear that the $1 million bounty for the capture of Harley is too much for him to pass up. Sorry, hon, but I'm going to have to do it. And it's another example of her father just stabbing her in the back.
Literally.
And shooting her in the back.
Yes, it's a very violent episode in that Harley is facing these assassins and the mob and the folks that at least at first she thinks are after her family and after him because of his debts. And it turns out he knows there's a bounty on her and he's behind this. He wants her to be captured to the point where he shoots her in the stomach so that he can capture her. What's interesting, maybe you can play this clip where after he assaults her, he then asks for her apology and understanding. Can you play that a little bit?
I can. I've got it right here. Here we go.
I do not know why you are so upset. I think you didn't understand. After all, you're a criminal like me.
I'm nothing like you.
So this brings up a concept that we've talked about before. I'm going to quiz you a little bit. Do you remember Darvo?
Oh, I remember. This was about abusive relationships. I remember the term. I don't remember the acronym, though.
DARVO stands for deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender.
Yes.
So those three elements, it's very typical with interpersonal violence or interpartner violence. But we also sometimes see it with family members, in particular abusive parents and their kids, where when, like in this case, Harlene's father notices he's in the wrong or that he's hurt her and he's physically harmed her, he then tries to first minimize. That's the deny. He minimizes it. Like the deny is, it's not me. I'm not doing this to you. Like you are the one who's the bad guy. There's a bounty on you, right? Yeah. The attack piece is, so he essentially puts the blame on her and finds faults in her and kind of like redirects the focus away from him and attacks her. And then the reverse victim and offender piece where essentially she becomes the perpetrator. She becomes the bad guy. And he's the one that is helpless. He's the one with the problem, like the addiction problem, right? He's the one that is helpless. And what's interesting is that her mom joins that dynamic and they scapegoat her. And we realize that probably from a very young age, she was betrayed in this way so many times, so that she often got confused, but also felt that she was in the wrong or that it was her fault. Yeah. So Darvo, again, actually can come into play when it comes to parental relationships and parental betrayal. in that they won't hold on to the guilt and blame. They'll try to transfer it to their kid. It's quite upsetting. And if this has happened to you, not only is it upsetting and frustrating, but if it happens many, many times, it can feel isolating and lonely and traumatic.
Right. Is this a form of gaslighting?
Yeah, I mean, when we talked about Darvo before, I believe it was in the beginning of this season of Harley Quinn, that yes, gaslighting is
Part of
it's part of it. I mean, gaslighting is often separated from Darvo as like another component of inner partner abuse or inner partner violence. But
It seems like once you start reversing it and now making
Yeah.
the victim the part of the problem in their own eyes, like it's you actively trying to gaslight them into believing that they're the reason that all of this happened.
yes, you try to make the abuser makes the other person into the offender and does it so well. Like there's a manipulation piece around it. They may not even recognize how insidious it is when they're doing it, but it can be so patterned that it becomes a skill that they have. Some people are really good at gaslighting or really good at reversing victim and offender. And we presumably folks who are susceptible to this as victims or survivors are on edge because we're constantly vigilant around, wait, why is this person being nice to me?
Yeah.
Are they being nice to me to then turn it around on me?
Right.
Are they in agreement and then suddenly going to be misaligned with me? And we saw that with Harley and her father, where he was love bombing her.
Yeah.
I'd say mom was love bombing her a little bit more, but he was, I'm sorry, I apologize, kind of showing her affection and care. And then within a beat, was able to turn around and assault her. So there's a lot here that in such just a few moments of this episode that elucidates a pattern or a cycle of behaviors in the dynamic of the family that no matter how many years go by, this is ultimately what characterizes them. This dysfunctional, heightened, toxic cycle of abuse. And it's hard to say where it all kind of originates, but it seems like the dad is the one who is willing to violate trust.
Right.
And so, I'd say probably some narcissism, obviously an addiction, but there are other things there beyond the addiction telling me that his grandiosity and his self-centeredness are very, very blown up, and it doesn't leave a lot of room for other people to heal and grow.
I'm curious. I don't want to give him any more benefit of the doubt than he deserves, but just in general, is this always a conscious thing that the abuser is doing, or is it possible that that person genuinely believes through their point of view that this other person, would you say Darvo is universal in that if you make this person feel this way, you have done it? Or is it possible that the abuser doesn't realize what they're doing? Because the way that you describe it, it seems manipulative from the jump.
Well, I would say that it's a reaction of self-protection. So it's a reaction to it's a reaction of intolerance. The individual can't tolerate the feelings of being wrong, of being vulnerable, of making a mistake, of being the offender,
right? Or being accused. They feel triggered by being accused of being bad and the offender, and okay.
And they prefer to switch into the quote falsely accused, and I think that it depends on the person, but I've worked with people and I've met people who truly feel a sense of entitlement around this. Like, I am being falsely accused and this is a wrongness. Like, I'm trying to right a wrong. I'm always the one being singled out or targeted and people are after me. It's not a paranoia. It's more of a sensitivity that
Right.
someone may have, an intolerance for examining themselves deeply.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like this defensive system. And then some people are incredibly manipulative and know how to reverse roles and know how to put on a falsely accused identity.
So there are those people who their pride is hurt, their ego has been attacked, and it becomes a defense mechanism where, in order to make themselves feel like they are the victim,
Yes.
they have manifested these, or they have interpreted things a
Yes.
certain way. And then there's the other person who knows they've been caught, and like a caged animal will then reverse it in a manipulative way in order to protect themselves.
I mean, either way, it's a guilt transference where the person being called out. I just want to say that, like, here, Harley is trying to call out the behaviors and the assaultive nature of her father, and he's trying to protect himself from the feelings of being I do want to say, like, guilty, but also that his own daughter would see him as a bad guy or a bad person, so he's kind of
Right.
protecting himself from that.
Yeah.
But the dynamic here, the process here, is a guilt transference. He's redirecting that guilt to the other person.
Yeah.
And by knowing, I mean, this is the other thing where people know personalities really well. He knows how to do this so that she feels bad, and she starts to wonder, maybe I'm the bad guy. Wait, aren't I in the Legion of Doom? Isn't it me who couldn't hold a job and got swept away by the Joker, and now I'm doing bad things? Like, they even told her, we can't really have a life because you're the one who's in the news because you're doing these bad things.
And the line that stuck with me, maybe the hardest, or it hit the hardest the moment it was delivered, was the mom says, oh, like all good Jewish moms, all I wanted you to do was marry a doctor. And Harley says, I am a doctor. And, that's not like, well, no, but that's not what we're asking for. There's no acknowledgement there of their daughter's success. And
they refuse to see her.
Yeah.
And that's very frustrating, because if we know by now, after 10 episodes, we've come to know Harley Quinn pretty well, the acknowledgement and the appreciation from other people, being seen and heard, people knowing that she puts effort in, people knowing that she's smart and valued, like, those are the things she's looking for. She wants other people to see her value. And now we see why. It's that her parents, no matter how successful she is, they simply do not see her value, and nor do they validate her.
Yeah.
And say, you're enough, you're great, you've accomplished something, we love you. They're not saying those things. They're essentially giving her messages that she's not good enough and
Yeah.
she's not valued.
And I think what's great about this episode is, while we're meant to see the parents, particularly Nick, as the baddies in this particular episode because of how they treat her, we see the very real world repercussions of these actions, in that Harley, whether she realizes or not, and this is why I was asking earlier, Harley is also continuing this cycle
Yeah.
that she has learned from her parents, particularly when it comes to her gang. She has, in essence, abandoned them in order to achieve her own selfish goals and needs. Meanwhile, her hench people that have become close friends of hers are now suffering. They're now out of work. And Ivy is, ostensibly her best friend is captured, and Harley has no idea. She won't, out of pride, won't reach out to her. And so they even call her out on that. They say that, your people were abandoned. And she says, no, they weren't. I was abandoned by them. So in her own point of view, she believes she is the victim here. But really what she has done is exactly what happened to her.
Right. And you start to see how early on those patterns begin to develop. Some of it is coping mechanisms where someone may learn. I mean, there's a lot of parentification here. I don't know if we've talked about that on the show before. We may have briefly touched on it, but typically a parentified kid or youth is a person who was raised with kind of a role reversal. Parentification occurs when a child is inappropriately expected to provide emotional or practical support for a parent, like doing chores and household things, cooking, cleaning, essentially like mature and adult type responsibilities, like caregiving and emotional support when they're not old enough yet to take on those responsibilities. And this disrupts their development. They start to grow up pretty quickly. It leads to a lot of negative mental health outcomes, but it's a dynamic that often doesn't change over time. So we're seeing this, Harley comes home. She's probably in her 30s now. And, even when she was a kid, she was taking care of her parents, especially her father, making sure her father was staying out of this debt. And here she is still trying to appease them and take care of them and be the one who's problem solving. And it almost seems like this is resurfacing for her, that when she was a kid, she was expected to be the adult and solve problems and mature much faster than she really deserved to. Then, she needed to have her childhood. Yeah. And so we kind of see that now with her struggling with relationships and with her friends and her crew, that often she's making poor or ill choices because she can't quite calibrate reciprocity and responsibilities that are appropriate for her.
I get that. Yeah. Interesting.
The other thing that I noticed from this episode was the family scapegoating. So we talked about this a little bit, but family scapegoating abuse is when there are repeated behaviors, hypocrisies, unfairness, and like really deep moral wounds typically inflicted by multiple family members on one family member.
Oh, okay.
I mean, younger brother.
So everybody's piling on.
Yes. And younger brother is not here. So, we don't, I'm sure we'll find out later what the dynamic was with him, but it's this like poisoning of the family dynamic where you no longer have trust and safety, and that manifests into other relationships. So in other words, because this family was constantly putting Harley as a scapegoat and betraying her and manipulating her and relying on her for so many things, she now is generalizing that to the world. So the world can't be trusted. People can't be trusted. Relationships can't be trusted. The Joker can't be trusted. So she's sort of, we see how she is essentially mapped this dynamic onto other people in her life. And the most important person now is Ivy, right? Who needs her right now. She's relying on Harley to come save her, and Harley's not available.
Come save her from Scarecrow. Does that excite you to know that a fellow psychological villain?
What are you saying?
Does
this excite me?
Yeah, I mean, well, you tend to get kind of excited when like a doctor of some kind is the villain. You like Scarecrow, not as much as some of the monsters, like say Clayface, etc. But you've tended to like Jonathan Crane quite a bit.
Yeah.
Well, now Crane is after Ivy's organs. They're basically trying to harvest her organs. For what purpose, we will find out. But we've also learned who placed the $1 million bounty onto Harley Quinn. In a comedic moment, Bane confronts the Penguin's son, Joshua, who you might remember from the bar mitzvah episode.
Right.
And it's because of the way that she ruined his bar mitzvah, he decided to use the Legion of Doom's corporate card to put the bounty on Harley's head. And in addition, he also spent money on vape pens, candies, and a suspicious dolphin encounter. So yeah, the kid's using the company card, his dad's company card, for personal gain as well as revenge against Harley. But in that scene, Bane announces that he took it upon himself to cancel the bounty on Harley. So even though these assassins are all coming after Harley, none of them are getting paid out, including mom and dad,
Right.
who also tried to win the bounty. So we'll see what happens in the next episode. What'd you think of this one? Like I said, tough watch.
Well, what did you think of this one?
Tough watch.
Why?
Because like I said, we're in those days where things are so divisive that I just from an empathetic point of view, I know there are a lot of people who have estranged themselves from their families, from their friends, from people who were once close to them, just because of what's going on in the world. And I'm not saying that they're wrong for having done so, but it's hard to then, when you're surrounded by all of this, go watch a funny show about estranged family members. You know, it's a tough watch, and I'm glad that we get an opportunity to talk about it. But yeah, just from that empathetic point of view of just knowing what's out there in the world right now, and knowing that people are having to deal with this on a regular basis, and then coming in and having a lighthearted 22 minutes it's tough.
I definitely agree with you. I think what really tugged at my engagement was Harley having her inner critic or her self-talk. I think what does she call her? Like her Jiminy Cricket other. There's this little
A little
person,
Harleen.
a little
Yeah.
Harleen, but it's Harleen.
But then she also names her Harleen. Like she acknowledges
she calls her
that
sane me.
Yeah.
She calls her sane me.
Yeah.
So sane me is the Harleen image who
wearing
comes
the lab
up.
coat and the glasses,
she's
the hair in the bun.
She's in the like original Arkham days glasses, lab coat, and everything. And she's meant to represent logical, rational thought, helpful thoughts, supportive thoughts. You know, like the sane me might even mean this is my ego. This is my true, genuine self when I'm healed, when I'm good, when I'm trusting. And that figure in her head, that voice in her head tells her, go visit your family. You need nurturing, you need support and love, and they'll always be there for you.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that turned out not to be accurate, that family rolled right back in to the dynamic of betraying her. That's called betrayal trauma, where you trust again, and then the person close to you violates that trust.
So it's Lucy and the football with Charlie Brown.
Does Charlie Brown feel a close connection to Lucy?
Of course.
He does?
And each time he thinks that this is the time that she'll not pull the football away.
Sure, then yes.
And then inevitably, there was never a time that she didn't pull the football away.
Right. Yes, essentially that. Betrayal trauma is more painful when it happens with someone who you're close to, someone who is supposed to take care of you, look after you. A stranger who betrays you, that doesn't really last that long, but
Right.
this is very lingering. And it's really interesting that her ego, her self-talk tells her, try again. Maybe you'll find genuine care from these folks who may actually be on your side this time.
Yeah.
And she's betrayed again. So I feel a sense of sadness for her that she develops in her strength to trust again, and that she's working on herself, and other people in her life are still unhealed and unrecovered and too toxic to meet her there.
But what she hasn't come to realize yet is that the people that she abandoned are the ones that she can actually put her trust into. So she has for whatever reason decided to put her trust in those people who continually hurt her, but not in the people who have never hurt her. They've always had her back.
Right.
And so hopefully that changes, especially now that Frank the plant comes and basically tells Harley, Ivy needs you right now. And Ivy gets in the car and goes. And then there's,
Harley gets in the car and goes.
Sorry. Yes. Harley gets in the car and goes to help Ivy. And then there's a mad C plot with, Mad Honey and, the psychotropics of Mad Honey.
Oh.
Are you not familiar with Mad Honey?
No, what's that?
Mad Honey is so the one guy who says, I've invested in Mad Honey, like I now deal in this, and he licks it twice and then suddenly he's like passed out. Mad Honey is honey that comes from Nepal, and it's incredibly hard to get to, and the bees are taking pollen from a plant. I think it's like one of the rhododendron family or something like that, but it's like something that's really local to there. The bees are taking that pollen and they're taking it back to the hive, and they're creating these honeycombs that are basically neurotoxins. And you can buy it. Like I think you could get Mad Honey at Walmart or whatever. But
what?
But the idea is,
you can buy this over just at the drugstore?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how potent Walmart Mad Honey is, but basically you can buy Mad Honey, and I think it's something like up to 5 tablespoons will basically create like an intoxication effect. Some people complain of hallucinations and stuff like that. I have no idea how true all of that actually is, but I will say that there are some serious side effects to it. If you ingest too much, you can have some serious problems. But yeah, Mad Honey is a real thing, and that guy he invested in a whole honeycomb of it as part of his drug dealer lifestyle.
Consuming 1 to 5 tablespoons of Mad Honey usually causes intoxication.
That's what I said. Like a 5 tablespoon. It was something along the something like a 5 tablespoon. But yeah, you can buy Mad Honey.
Interesting.
I once
honey hunting.
What?
Honey hunting.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing is, and this is part of that that need to know, that possible ADHD need to know how everything works. I've watched videos on how this stuff's harvested.
Well, clearly, because you just pulled that out of your back pocket.
Yeah, it's crazy to see, and these people, like, they can't really go in with a whole lot of protection and all that stuff. Like it's literally, it's not like going up into a tree and taking it out of the hive. This is like on the side of a mountain. They're rappelling.
Wow.
And having to just reach in and grab chunks and throw them into bags. And, like they're getting stung so much by harvesting Mad Honey from Nepal that, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
You learn a little something. It's funny. It's funny that you, I just mentioned it as a side thing, and it's like, now let's go down a deep dive about Mad Honey.
Oh, I think your ADHD is your superpower, because you have
I like knowing stuff.
You went down this rabbit hole once before on your own, in your own time, and now you're bringing it all up.
I once watched a guy soak.
What?
What?
What's about to
I'm trying to remember what he made. It wasn't ribs. It was steak, maybe. I think he soaked a steak in Mad Honey for like a month.
Oh.
And then also soaked another steak in regular honey for a month. And then also just made like a control steak. And then he and his team tried it to see like what the honey did to it after a month of aging. And it was interesting. I wish I could remember who that person was.
Oh, are you going to remember what the outcome was?
Yeah, I remember that the Mad Honey, basically they had determined that by cooking it, it had basically cooked out any of the sort of hallucinogenic properties of the Mad Honey. So it's not like eating the steak, but they did say that steak was significantly better than even the regular honey version. I can't remember all the reasons why, but I mean, but it was interesting. Like, I think that was when I was doing the deep dive on like the harvesting of it and everything. And like, someone's like, yeah, I got basically a gigantic honeycomb of it, similar to this person. And just the amount that you've got to put into a container so that you can put a gigantic steak in there, to just sit for a month. It was interesting.
Okay.
And apparently tasty. Now I'm thinking about going to Walmart and getting some. Just so I can age a steak. Maybe not. Anyway.
Okay.
So Drea, you enjoyed this episode. You got a lot out of it.
It tells a good story.
Yeah.
It leaves you with some intensity, intense emotions, but again, it does wrap it up.
Yep.
We're following Harley, so we know she's flawed and she's still learning her lessons, and I think that's what makes the show engaging for me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where we go next, especially now that we know that we're going to encounter Scarecrow. Like I said, folks, 3 episodes. Next episode, we're going to let you know the 5 different shows or movies or whatever that Drea has apparently decided that are going to be the semifinalists. The show after that will be the 3 finalists, and then the show after that, we will announce our upcoming group of sessions. It could be season 2 of this. It could be season 2 of X-Men. It could be you've got like just the most devilish.
You decide.
Like
I'll
look
decide
on your
and then
face
you'll
right
decide.
now. I'm very curious to know what these 5 things are.
I don't think that I have any surprises. I think you will not be surprised by my choices.
All right.
But again, ultimately, you and I are not making the choice. Our listeners make the choice.
It is entirely up to our listeners. So we look forward to finding out what you choose for us to watch next. Until then, Drea, why don't you tell the good folks so they can find you online?
You can find me on my website, drdreapsychology.com, or on socials at Dr. Drea Psychology.
You can find me. I am at Instagram at B_Ward028. You can find us both on Instagram at The Arkham Sessions. You can also email us, arkhamsessions@gmail.com. You can also come follow us on Facebook, join our Discord, join our Patreon. For $1, you get everything in advance, and then at $3 you get to vote, and then there are additional tiers beyond that. So come follow us. It's patreon.com/Arkham Sessions. Then be sure to follow our family over at Fanbase Press. We could not do this without them, and we also couldn't do this without our Patreon members. For $5 tiers, you get a shout out, just like these folks: Mike Ficklin, Lindsay B, Dr. Jerome Anderson, Antonio Lopez, Todd Stashwick, Heroes Journey Fitness, Brian Kerr, Trevor Schwartz, Bert Compton, Mark Pepper, Frank Moeller, Swarasa Lee, Jamiroquai J, and SK. Thank you all so much for your support. We couldn't do these shows without you. Until next time, I'm Brian Ward.
I'm Dr. Drea Letamendi.
And together we are
The Arkham Sessions.
Ooh, that really took a turn, didn't it?